Sexual bullying is a peculiarly poisonous and pernicious form of bullying. It goes to the heart of every pupil's self-efficacy, their sense of themselves and their self-worth.
It's vital that we define sexual bullying. It's vital that we name it and that schools recognise it, and that we don't leave it to children to have to tell us about something that, quite frankly, is embarrassing, distressing, and the last thing they want to be talking about out loud.
The research that is starting to be done on sexual bullying is showing that it's very highly prevalent in schools today, and that the majority of young people have been a victim to it or witnessed it.
"45% of teenage girls have had their bottoms or breasts groped against their will. This is what happened to Fiona.
They were picking out girls and targeting girls, sort of making comments about the way we should be. Just say that I should be wearing skirts so they could see my legs, and then they would have a laugh and like, just take your top off and things like that. At one point they just tried to spread the rumour that I was a prostitute. They started targeting me, and like when I was on my own, and they would sort of pin you up against the wall, touch you, and just say things to you and that. And I was kind of scared about walking to and from classes and after school as well, because they would follow me down the road. So I didn't really want to leave school on my own. There was a few teachers that noticed what was going on. It happened in every class. They never really paid much attention. I don't think she really thought it was anything serious. It kind of changed over the course that all happened. Instead of just sort of pushing and shoving and pinning you up against the wall, they'd be more rough as well. And they would just sort of put their hands up your top, or sort of down your trousers, and I didn't feel like I could do anything, but I probably did freeze. And when they were touching you and things like that, it was, I don't know. Part of me sort of thinks that they must have knew they were upsetting me, because sort of it's not something that sort of you would just do to anyone, but they seemed quite naive at the same time.
What some of the research has shown is that sexual bullying in particular is linked to the worst outcomes. So those outcomes include nightmares, trouble sleeping, depression, low self-esteem, poor body image, and poor confidence.
I think there are a lot of teachers who don't articulate sexual bullying as sexual bullying. They see it just as bullying if they're aware and sensitive to bullying, or they see it as just the sort of thing that normally goes on in school.
Sexual bullying can be characterised as gender-based bullying, bullying of a sexual nature, or sexual harassment in schools. It can include a broad sweep of behaviours, from name-calling or spreading rumours, right through to sexual assault or even rape. Many schools and teachers may have never heard the term sexual bullying, and yet almost every school is affected. But what can schools do about this emerging issue?
Hello, Reduce Abuse Project, Shona speaking. How can I help you?
Shona Bruce of the Violence Against Women Partnership in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, is on a mission to tackle this challenging problem.
Sexual bullying work is something that means a lot to me, because it was something that I saw a lot when I was at school, when I was growing up. I saw girls being bullied in this way, and it was very hard to know how to articulate how upset and angry I felt about it. And it did feel that it was unfair, that boys can behave in any way they like sexually, and that they're positively encouraged, and if girls do, then they're called names, they're called a slut or a slapper or whatever, and it's absolute double standards. Sexual bullying is something that is gendered. It doesn't affect particularly girls or particularly boys. It affects both genders, because it is about the kind of socialisation that young people get when they're growing up, which means that they aren't always aware that they've got choices about how they behave.
For the last 2 years, Shona has been developing a programme of lessons and a teaching pack, which she delivers to as many local schools as possible. One school which has been instrumental in facilitating Shona's work is Dumbarton Academy.
When you decide to tackle something like sexual bullying, then potentially you might be opening up the school to criticism that, you know, we have something going on that other people don't. People, their first reaction is that they don't understand exactly what we mean by that. They simply hear the word sexual and think, you know, that they're concerned about what it will be. But once they found out exactly what we were challenging and the kind of things we were trying to do, I think people have been much more accepting of it and been very positive about it.
Hi, and you come. Young people are forced into a set of very rigid rules in terms of their gender, and it's other young people that are enforcing those rules. So it's a clear peer pressure from girls to boys, girls about each other, boys about each other. What about emotions? Is it okay for boys to cry? Anytime if you get dumped?
No, not really.
Not if you get dumped. So when's it okay then? When your team loses? And girls all kind of cuddle each other and stuff like that, don't they? The boys do that. We're going to go round the groups then and see what it was you came up with. Well, we start with this group here. Do you want to give me some examples of what you had written down?
Shopping, chatting and giggling all the time. To always worry about our weight and what we look like.
Yeah. Fabulous. So you think that that's something that girls are expected to be concerned about, is about their weight?
Yeah.
Where do you think that kind of thing comes from then, if that is a stereotype? Where's it from?
Models.
Models?
Barbies and stuff like that. You never ever see a fat Barbie. So
Yeah.
like, all these like shaving adverts for the shavers and all that, it's like reveal your true woman and all that. So it's like if you don't shave your legs then you're not a woman. It even says it on TV and stuff like that.
That's a really good point. The kind of language that they use in adverts. The links there between the kind of bullying that girls experience, the sexist bullying, the kind of names they can get called, boys pinging their bra straps, pulling up their skirts, that kind of thing, can all be linked to homophobic bullying. Young boys are so afraid of being labelled as being gay, whether they are or not, because of homophobia, that it encourages them into a kind of exaggerated machismo, and it can encourage them to sexually bully girls in order to prove that they're straight. Using the word gay to mean rubbish, is that always sexual bullying? Is it sometimes or is it never? You'll all have heard the word, that's gay, that's pure gay. Is it always, sometimes or never?
Is it? That's gay. I don't think that's bullying.
Okay, one table's voted. Anybody else ready? Never? Okay, girls, you ready to vote? We've got 2 sometimes, a never and a sometimes. When is it okay to use the word gay to mean rubbish then?
I don't think that people are getting slagged for being gay when you say, oh, that's gay. You're just meaning, I don't know, I think it's just a habit that people get into, and it's not to intentionally hurt someone because people aren't like that really, but it's just a habit.
It's never bullying because you're not directing it at anyone. You're just saying, oh, that's gay. Because, like, in football, you say it if you miss a shot. And that.
I think it's been generalised as being a bad thing, and that's why people have started to use it as being rubbish.
How do you think someone who's actually gay feels every time they hear somebody going, oh, it's gay, meaning rubbish?
They probably feel like a piece of dirt that's not worth anything if they hear people saying it all the time.
So although it's not directed at somebody in particular, it's generally creating an atmosphere where there's homophobia. And where somebody's not safe or some people aren't safe, everybody thinks, well, if nobody's challenging that, maybe if something happened to me, they wouldn't challenge that either. When I'm doing sexual bullying classes, I like to get young people to think about the kind of messages that they're getting round about them, what kind of role models they've got, the messages the media give out to them as girls and as boys.
Children copy that behaviour. Children try something out and they carry on doing it because they get away with it. And children don't always recognise just how distressing that has been.
Young people may well not report sexual bullying because they just see it as normal. This is part of the culture of my school, the culture of my society.
Leonie Hodge knows all too well the causes and effects of sexual bullying. As a teenager, she was keen to fit in with her peer group.
I did used to follow the older ones, so I'd go down the park and, get attention of boys. When I was younger and I did act promiscuously, I did regret it. I'd come back and I would just feel absolutely devastated with myself, very low, quite depressed, and I think that it has a big psychological impact on teenagers.
When her friend was a victim of an horrific crime, Leonie began to question the behaviours and attitudes that she had previously accepted as normal.
I remember when I was 13 and a friend of mine who was 15 was raped, and she was walking home from school and she was taken quite randomly into a car. It was really, really, really upsetting for me, and to see my friend go through so much pain. And what made it worse was at school, the boys would joke about rape in classrooms, and they seemed to find it really, really funny. It changed me, actually, completely, and I really started to work hard at school, dress completely differently, more respectfully, and it just made me realise, that you don't need to live your life that way. And it was actually through seeing what happened to her that I realised that what self-respect is.
6 months ago, Leonie set up Teen Boundaries UK with the aim of combating what she sees as some of the disturbing attitudes and behaviours of teenagers.
Sexual bullying is just not out there in the general consciousness of people. It's not really on the top of every school's agenda. It's kind of very new, it's kind of very emerging, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of empathy for sexual bullying, particularly not victims. Schools have policies on every single type of bullying, it seems, apart from sexual bullying, which is one of the biggest problems that they could face. If you don't tackle sexual bullying, then what you're essentially saying is, well, we're just going to let it happen, and then later on we'll pump all our funds and resources into the aftermath. STDs, underage drinking, people have gone on to be young mothers. There's a whole host of issues there.
If people are in a culture that allows sexual bullying, then in a way that's communicating to everybody, to that person, that it's okay to treat people as sexual objects. That then can make things like rape not seem so bad, and therefore it can allow rape to occur.
Leonie has been invited back to her old secondary school, the Cavendish School in Hemel Hempstead, for the first time in 9 years. She is due to deliver a sexual bullying workshop to some of the students.
Do you remember me, Leonie?
Yes, how lovely to see. Oh, you smiled at me, and I kind of thought.
Yeah, I came good, but
you come good, haven't you?
yeah, I did. I got all my GCSEs.
Really nice memories.
Yeah, some good ones. Yeah, some of them I've forgotten, just blocked out, I think.
That's great to see you.
The Cavendish School has a strong pastoral ethos with 2 dedicated behaviour welfare officers among the staff. Like many schools, they have noticed a worrying trend towards the use of sexualised language among students and are keen to challenge this behaviour.
Cavendish School does its absolute best in dealing with any of the sexual bullying incidents that arise. There have been incidents where 2 students were, sexually active, and the boy has sent pictures around of the girl to his other friends. Other incidents we had to deal with is boys putting their hands down their pants, putting their fingers through their zip, using it to come up behind other students, boy or girl. Biggest problem is having the information. And so this is where I think Leonie's programme, hopefully, will bridge that gap to encourage students to be able to tell someone.
We don't want to be going down the route where we see every sexual interaction between young people as, potentially problematic. So really, I would argue that the distinction there is around power and around the unwantedness of the behaviour.
My name is Leonie, and I work for a charity called Teen Boundaries UK. And what I do is I come into schools and I talk to girls and boys such as yourself about sexual bullying. First of all, I'd like to start off with just the word slag. Right, when I say the word slag to you, what would you think?
Slag.
Stop out.
Sleep around.
Girls.
Right, so we've got girls. What else?
Short skirt.
Somebody said slut.
Pregnant.
I said slut.
Sex.
Sex.
Maybe.
Short skirt.
Short skirt.
Stocking. Yeah. High boots.
Okay, anything else?
Gives it out easy. Stop outs. Promiscuous.
We got stop out.
Okay.
Prostitute.
Prostitute. Would you say that anybody you know in your school is a slag?
Yeah.
But how old are they?
15. Sometimes younger.
Okay, and boys, do the boys like that girl?
Yeah.
Do you think in some way she's sort of powerful?
In her over the boys. Yeah.
Over the
She's got more
boys.
power.
When you label someone a slag, you are really isolating them. It's the same as in racism. You say, oh, that person's just a black person or whatever. They're going to be this. And you're not really giving that person a chance.
They're basically asking for it.
You think they're asking for it?
Yeah. If you're going to go and sleep round, you expect people to talk about you.
Yeah, but can you understand why she might be doing that? It's trying to sort of just put yourself in that girl's shoes.
But that's the complete wrong thing to do if she's doing it.
So what would you say you've seen or experienced?
When boys say stuff about girls' tits, like how big or small they are.
And it's that quite hurtful, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, they
Yeah.
walk around, they say fried eggs or they go melons, and you're like, right.
Yeah. Why would you say guys say things like that to girls?
Act hard in front of their friends. Make them feel big about themselves and when they're really not.
Let's say these two boys were walking along the corridor and there was two girls at the back or whatever, and they started going, oh, look at your tits, oh, they're so small, disgusting, or fried eggs. Would you guys turn around to them and say, shut up, stop speaking to her like that?
No.
No.
Why not?
They'll just laugh.
Yeah.
Because that's bullying, though.
Yeah, but if you say something, then you'll probably end up having it ripped out of you.
But can you see by the fact that you never sort of stand up to anyone and you never say that's wrong, you're just letting it happen? You might not think, like, when I came in and I said sexual bullying, you probably think, what have I got to do with sexual bullying? But actually, by the fact that you take part in things like that and you just let it happen, you're kind of as bad as the person who's doing it.
If you look at the content of a lot of these magazines that are arguably targeted at young adolescent boys, just putting aside the sexual explicitness of these magazines, they're communicating messages that are saying that women are sexual objects and that they are actually of not much value. They can be denigrated and belittled. We're also seeing a rise in the amount of pornography that is available and that is being viewed by young people. From the age of around 11, young people are on average watching pornography for at least about half an hour a week, if not more.
I didn't actually realise that calling someone a slag was actually like going to affect someone that much.
Sitting there talking about it today, I never thought about it as much as I am like now. Like, when people say it, you don't really think of it, but now because you've talked about it, you can kind of see that it's really bad.
Sometimes I do go along with it. Like, you don't realise you're actually bullying someone. Like, if someone said it in class, I'd probably find it funny myself. But you don't realise you're actually hurting someone's feelings.
The lesson, they said there's girls that feel insecure about themselves and like that have happened stuff in the past, and I think that's really true. Like, they do things with boys because of their insecurities and stuff.
If, like, there's a girl, like, on her own and a bunch of boys walk up to her and then they start, like, grabbing her tits or grabbing her ass and she doesn't want it, they just carry on and don't really, like, have much, like, remorse about it after.
It was really genuinely nice to see a real mixed group of kids be able to interact so positively, you know, and still be kind of typical teenagers, if you like, and still have their laugh and still have their joke, but actually genuinely take it serious and genuinely get stuck in and be interested.
A leopard doesn't change its spots overnight.
No.
But at least you can say that you've told them the right information.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise they're just going out there kind of blank.
You sometimes think, oh, they've probably heard it all before. They genuinely haven't really been ever caught up or called up on these behaviours. It's just I was a little bit amazed about that, and just adds to the fact how important programmes like this are.
Back in Scotland, Pat Latimer and Shona Bruce want to find out what pupils think.
Mrs Latimer and I are involved in a group, a meeting in school, which is about rewriting Dumbarton Academy's anti-bullying policy. And what we're interested just now to hear is what you think that schools should do about sexual bullying.
Some girls do stuff, like with boys and all that, so they kind of make a name for themselves, but I don't think anyone should be called a slut, but they do make a name for themselves.
But if we lived in an environment where there wasn't any kind of sexual bullying or sexist bullying, would that happen? Would girls be targeted and boys were left alone for that kind of behaviour?
I think the main reason that girls get called sluts is because if somebody, if like two girls fall out, then the other person's going to immediately look for a flaw in their old friend, and then maybe if they talk to boys or if they're friendly with boys, then that's going to be the first flaw that they find, so that's going to be the next name that they're going to get called.
Right, so it's important that people realise that we're going to take it seriously, isn't it? That we are going to do something.
What we'd like to do is kind of change the way that people talk to each other. If someone is being targeted and there's rumours being spread about them and they're being bullied in this way, should something be done about it?
I think like any type of bullying that someone like isn't acceptable, so whether it be like sexual bullying or any other type of bullying, they should be like taken out and should be talked to about it, and you know, maybe their parents should get phoned and things because it's serious.
So talk to the pupil who's bullying to try and sort it out in school, do you think?
Yeah, that does work then.
Talk to parents about it maybe, so to see if they could change it. Quite often sexual bullying gets ignored. So we're not trying to say sexual bullying is much worse than any other type of bullying. What we're saying is sexual bullying is there as well, and it also needs something done about it.
We know it's happening. We can give lots of evidence to the fact that it's happening. And what we need is schools to build that into their anti-bullying policies. We need them to build it into PSHE. We need them to build it into the whole culture of the school.
In conjunction with the local council, Dumbarton Academy are rewriting their anti-bullying policy to include sexual bullying for the very first time.
I completed collecting the staff questionnaires, and we really asked them very similar questions to what we had asked the pupils.
Is there a sense coming through, do you think, in the questionnaires that teachers think it is important? That this is something worth challenging?
Very much so. Some teachers have felt that it's something that's concerned them in the past, is that there perhaps aren't clear guidelines about how to tackle this kind of incidents in the classroom.
As well as becoming a policy for Dumbarton Academy, the council hopes to roll out the strategy across the authority and put sexual bullying on the agenda in all the local schools. The next day, Shona's heading back to the academy.
Today's a really important day because it's the first day that the first time I'm going to be in Dumbarton Academy doing training with teachers and with pupil and family support staff. I don't really think there's any point in just going in doing the sexual bullying classes and leaving again. There has to be something sustainable left behind. Once I've been into a school and I've done sexual bullying classes, the chances are that there could be an increase of the amount of incidents of sexual bullying that are reported, not because there'll be an increase in the incidents, but because young people will be more aware of what sexual bullying is and the fact that they don't need to put up with it and there's something they can do about it. So I need to be talking to teachers about the possibility of that. And sometimes that can make schools nervous.
This will be the first time that Shona has had the chance to address teachers directly and hear their concerns. She hopes that this training will work in conjunction with the students' sexual bullying lessons as a whole school approach to tackling this issue.
So what causes sexual bullying? Use of gendered and sexualised language, slut and whore and all these kinds of words that just fall off people's tongues and they're not really thinking about what it means, what exactly a slut is.
Quite a few of them don't understand what they're actually saying. Yeah. They don't realise what they're saying until you ask them to explain it and then they backtrack it.
I find that one of the hardest things. I'm not sure how to deal with when you hear, kids are constantly calling one another a gay boy. Yeah. Now, it's almost as if that's an accepted way to speak about other kids.
I've challenged things in the classroom, like using the term gay, for instance, but it's like a relentless tide that just keeps coming at you. They keep using it, even though you challenge it, it still comes back. So it's difficult to know. Sometimes you feel like, oh, right, I've had enough. Yeah. And you just let it go. But that doesn't seem right either.
How do you think you could get round that by challenging that language?
I think it has to be a whole school thing. It can't just be targeting one class or one group of pupils. It has to be a whole school thing where everybody buys in. There's a consensus, there's repercussions, there's an understanding. What does it mean? What's it about?
If 1 or 2 or 3 teachers started challenging it around the same time, it would make people notice.
The buzzword just now in my classroom has been, oh, miss, he's a pedo. And it's because they're now starting to get boyfriends and girlfriends and Scarily, it sounds like they're becoming sexually active. I think it's showing me that pupils do have lots of questions that need answered, but you have to get the right people to answer the questions and not necessarily individual classroom teachers.
Used to be 4th year, 5th year before you would deal with those sort of things. Nowadays, year 2, 3, and I think that they really do have to be aimed at.
I find it quite concerning that young girls actually, it's like notches in their bedpost that a lot of the really young ones are wanting to say that they're sexually active, and sometimes when you hear little snippets of things in the corridor, you wonder if they're actually exaggerating and lying about it. It's almost like they're part of a peer group if they have had sex or they're sexually active. And that concerns me a lot.
And could that maybe be linked to things like the pussycat dolls and girls allowing
yeah,
things
quite,
like that?
See what you're saying, sexualising everybody
safe?
from a very young age. Yeah, I think that a lot of the messages get mixed, and I think it's very destructive for a lot of them as well. It really is.
It's really important that teachers inform themselves about sexual bullying so that they feel they're clear about what sexual bullying is and they have thought about how they would go about challenging it in schools. But they need to be able to see the links between sexual bullying and things like domestic abuse and rape and sexual assault.
A school which really doesn't tackle those issues is a failing school. And it's failing because it doesn't actually get the best out of its pupils. I know of no pupil who does brilliantly when they're not confident, when they're undermined, when they're worried about themselves, when they're worried about the next insult or the next piece of abuse coming round the corner.
This is a human rights issue. Young people have the right to feel safe in schools and not to be in fear of whether they're going to be disrespected on a regular basis.